sharing my shadow collection. Maybe you care, maybe you don't, but you know that I was all in 1994. But it actually started a little bit before that. My dad introduced me to the Shadow, and I started buying these cassette collections, okay, that were the old radio shows of the Shadow. Actually, my sister bought me this awesome CD collection that, just upgraded a few years later that she actually found at her local library. But since then, I've actually been lucky enough at various thrift stores and things. I've been able to find more Shadow collections on cassette, and I still have plenty of cassette players. And each one's just a little bit different, a different selection. Usually they will give you, the multiple seasons. Well, a bunch of tapes just fell. But there were a lot of people who played the Shadow over the years. I mean, it ran from the 30s into the 50s. So that's when my dad was listening, it was kind of the 50s. But either way, so as a result, I was into the Shadow before I knew about the movie. So my dad started taking me, to comic book stores in the early 90s. And I picked up the first issue of the DC Comics Shadow. Hey, how about issue number 2 as well? Again, this was at a time when nobody cared about him, although I don't know anybody cared about him after the movie came out either. But I was picking up a lot of these vintage. This one was actually written by Michael Uslan, the producer of the Batman films. And so the other one I was able to pick up was this, which is really cool. This is a Marvel graphic novel. So many companies, Dark Horse, everybody has produced The Shadow. But this one was by Denny O'Neil and had Michael Kaluta art in there. It was just like a one-shot special edition, but it's really neat because it was a hardcover. So anyway, speaking of comics, though, the movie was definitely promoted in comics. This is an old issue of Steel, but I just thought that was cool to find that ad on the inside cover. But additionally, there were lots of coverage in various magazines. So this was like this weird collector's magazine I'd never heard of. I found this when I was out and about. But you see, they're promoting the trading cards, which I'll get to in a minute. But this actually informed me about a book about the history of the Shadow that came out at that time I didn't know about. But here's an issue of Comics Scene right there with some great information. I'm going to be referencing all these on the episode when we record. But a lot of people forget that The Mask was coming out that same summer. This is a British movie magazine, and each one just kind of had a unique angle to it. How about the Sci-Fi Channel had their own magazine? They covered it. And then this is the official movie magazine, which when the movie was coming out, I got very excited. So obviously it has a lot of, behind-the-scenes stuff in here. But one of the things, this was in most of these magazines that were promoting it. This was something where you could actually join the Shadow fan club. And so I did that. Let me see if I can find the page here, where I cut out the coupon. Yeah, there it is right there. So the coupon is missing, as you can see. And I sent away for my Shadow fan club kit. Okay, so this was it coming in this envelope that said it was confidential. Okay, so you got a newsletter was one part of it. But there were a lot of other special goodies, because this is like the old days. I'd always heard about these things. So here was the Shadow News. Okay, so there was this newsletter that gave you information. But then you also got the Shadow Club secret decoder card. So it would show you how to decode the secret messages that they would send you, in the newsletter. But also, this is my certificate that said I'm an official agent of the Shadow. As you can see, I wrote my name in there. You got an autographed picture of the Shadow, which is neat. If I ever get a chance to meet Alec Baldwin, I'm going to have him actually sign on this so I get a real signature. But also in the mix here, there was some cool stuff because you got an official membership card. Okay, so again, it says there you're a special agent of the Shadow. You got your own serial number. Okay, you got an agent ring. I don't know if you can really make that out. Let me see if I can tap this. Yeah, so there you go. But it was kind of an engraved look to that. What else was in there? Because, like I said, I got a couple of the. Oh, this is actually me decoding. So I was writing on some lined paper, decoding the messages. But you also got the Shadow Club pin. which was very special to me. I was just like, I can't believe I have all the Shadow stuff. But also, what I've kept in with all this stuff are my ticket stubs from when I saw the Shadow in theaters. I actually went twice that summer. So I went on opening weekend, and then I went on the following weekend because I loved it so much. I was so excited to be seeing it. So that's awesome. Also, at the time that the movie was coming out, there was other stuff like this. There was an old serial in the 40s, this series that, was released. This was a double tape, set. So that was kind of cool to have that at the time. What else do I want to see here before I get into the main stuff? Oh, I guess I'll share this as well. My sister just got this for me recently as well for my birthday. And this is basically a synopsis of everything the Shadow did in the pulp novels, which is really where he started. He started on radio as a personality, like a voice, and then he was kind of a host of all these random shows before he had his own adventures. Then they said, hey, let's write a magazine about him and build some adventures for him, right? And make him his own hero. So I've not read a lot of those pulp novels and magazine stories, but I really do want to get into them. This is another thing that a friend of mine who's been on the show, N. Logan, Jeff, N. Logan 77 on Twitter, he found this. This is a Shadow Collegeville Halloween costume, okay? I think it probably came with a hat at the time, but this is just the smock. But I was so excited to get this. This is actually from the 70s, which is strange, because that's about the time they were starting to do those revival comics and things like that. Okay, so let me get into the movie itself and share some stuff with you. So I have this, which is a sneak peek tape, okay? This was sent to the video rental stores to get them to order copies of the movie. And as part of that, it had this little pamphlet inside. There was a giveaway where you could actually win Alec Baldwin's costume from the movie, which was awesome. But they also would send you, for every copy you ordered, this old-timey radio, and it was also a cassette player, and then they would send you an episode of the radio show, which was just a really fun promotion. But, so here is a copy of The Shadow on VHS. I have like 8 of these. Every time I find them in a thrift store, I pick them up and grab them. But I actually have one also that was home recorded. So this is a copy that somebody recorded off of TV when it was broadcast. It's not even the movie, like it got cut off at a certain point. Let me grab this too. I got to move these radio tapes out of the way that fell. So I do have it on Blu-ray. It has like a reversible thing, so I put that on here with this. This is like the international movie poster. Wow, that's really bleaching it out. So I was excited to get this Blu-ray. I actually used to have a German Blu-ray. It only had an international release originally, but I sold that when I got this American one that had more. I really should have kept it for completion's sake. I also don't have my old DVD copy anymore. I sold that off. But I do have the soundtrack here, which is really great, both on CD and audio cassette. There's a very cool song on there by Taylor Dane, but I just love, wow, stop bleaching out there. The Shadow, there's no shadow, there's the bleach, the ghost. But anyway, so I was a big fan of that song, but the Jerry Goldsmith did the soundtrack, which is great. This is also awesome. The Shadow Lunchbox, okay? They were giving this the full Batman treatment. They really wanted to do this, so you have your thermos with everything. There was even a video game for the Super Nintendo that was in development. It never got released, but somebody kind of produced it and then has been selling like a bootleg cartridge. I bought one, but it didn't work. It wouldn't play, even though I have an old Super Nintendo to play it on. And I was like, so I sent it back for a refund. I kind of wish now I would have held on to it. I don't know why it didn't work. There's also this right here. So this is a weird Digipack DVD copy. So it looks like a CD, but it's actually a DVD copy of the movie. And if you want to get really old school, don't do that. All right, watch this. Oh, Laserdisc, baby. Yeah. I still don't have a Laserdisc player for all the VHS that I have, but awesome to have a Laserdisc copy. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, I do have this, about the same size. This is a still sealed The Shadow calendar from back in the day, 1995 calendar, because it was coming out in 94. So they were saying, hey, you want to check that out, have it all year long. There were also two novelizations that were released. So we have one that was the junior novelization and one that was the full novelization. I'm going to be referencing these on the episode as well. This one's kind of cool because they mix in a lot of like the pulp story stuff, and there are in fact like kind of deleted scenes, a whole kind of subplot that's lost or not as emphasized in the movie. I do have the adaptation in the comic book form, so they just collected a few of the issues that they did. This is the first issue of that series. It's kind of a loose adaptation, but it was supposed to be a tie-in to the movie with Shiwan Khan as the villain. See what else I got here. Sorry, my stacks are starting to come. It's got loose here. I got so many. I'll share this with you. Check this out. This is the Shadow board game. All right, I've had this since I was a kid. Bought this back in 1994 at Toys R Us. It's really cool. It has, like, as you can see here, like a 3D board, and it has like a moving thing where you can get into his whole sanctum, as he called it. But that was pretty neat to have that. I've played it with my family. It's a fun game. Also, where did I put that pack? Well, there was trading cards that came out. So, of course, I have a full set of the trading cards as well, which was just a really nice set by Topps. Like I said, if they did it for Batman, they were doing it for the Shadow at this time. Now, one of the other things that they did, though, was that they released an action figure line. So let me show you this. This is Model and Toy Collector magazine, which I thought was going to talk about the toys inside when I first got this as a kid. It does not. It talks about like the history and like older stuff, like the radio show premiums that you could get back in the day. But there was a full action figure line by Kenner. Here's my Kenner Action Toy Guide, where it talks about the Shadow alongside Batman and Jurassic Park and stuff. So I loved these preview booklets as a kid, where you could just learn all about what was in the line. But this is like a rare publicity photo of the action figures that Kenner must have taken to like trade shows, or I don't know if they were sending this out to magazines, but it's black and white. Like, were you going to post a black and white photo to sell your awesome, colorful action figures? So let me show you this real quick. So I went to Toys R Us in 1994, and I bought up all the figures because nobody cared. I got them super cheap. You probably saw them at KB Toys for years, 3 for $5. But I have the collector's case. Inside are all of my individual, figures that I took out of the box as a kid that I'm going to play with these. But I do have all of the figures, okay, on card. I love this design. I love everything about this. This is actually on Twitter, on my personal account right now. That is my my avatar. That's my profile pic. But there's the KB Toys tag. You can see right there. So that was the standard Shadow figure. They also had the transforming Lamont Cranston with an Alec Baldwin figure. So there you go. It's not quite as good a sculpt as the Michael Keaton from Batman Returns version, the transforming one, but this was a very cool figure. Yeah, this invisible shadow look. I mean, anytime a figure was translucent, it was awesome. This is the craziest one, which was Ninja Shadow. This is not from the movie. I mean, but they had to sell it to kids somehow. Ninja Turtles were still super popular. I will show you this also. So this is a special Shadow where you would actually squeeze his legs. You see, it's deluxe electronic, and then he would laugh. Mine actually almost does a chipmunk laugh now. After all these years, it still works, but it's like, it goes a little bit faster than it used to. So, of course, those were all the heroes. We only got a Series 1, but you also had to have your villain, right? So this is Shiwan Khan in his, what do they call it? Yeah, Battle Shiwan Khan. So he's got these claws that he puts on. He's got a helmet. Grab this one. This one fell here, but this is like the standard Shiwan Khan with his staff. And this is supposed to be the Furba knife, which was like this, living knife that's in the movie. It doesn't look anything like it, that toy anyway. Speaking of which, Dr. Mokino is not a character in this movie, but I think they had to go to the novels and say, can we get more villains? Are there more villains to be had? Because you got to pad out this line, because otherwise you just get Shiwan Khan and the Mongol warrior, and you could, it's kind of like a foot soldier, you could buy yourself an army of those. So, there were also vehicles. Again, this was a full line of toys. I actually have ended up over the years with 3 of this toy, but this is my sealed box still here. So it's kind of this cool cycle. This one, I wonder if it's repurposed from another line, because Kenner did that a lot. I should know by now. I just don't think I've ever really researched it. This is the Shiwan Khan Serpent bike, which had a sidecar so he could ride in it with his Mongol warrior carrying him along. But of course, the coolest ones were the Shadows vehicles. Look at this cab right here, man. This thing is awesome. I have taken it out of the box. In fact, my son, when he was younger, my oldest, loved playing with this thing and the Shadow figures. We would play with them all the time. So that cab is in the movie, although it doesn't have all those bells and whistles. This is not, but it's still cool. They're like, well, the Shadow's got to have a Batmobile, right? This Mirage vehicle. But it's a very, very cool piece of plastic that they've molded together there. So the last thing I want to share with you here, I think I knocked it down. Yeah, there we go. So if you were paying attention to some of those boxes, let me see if I can find one here, because I think they did a second wave of the release of the figures. Yeah, here we go. So if you look on there, all right, you could send away for something that was free. And what it was a ring, okay? So there was a hologram ring that you could mail away with for your proofs of purchase. So I did not mail away. I cut out my proofs of purchase from the card backs, and I never sent them away. And then years later, I went looking for it, and I finally, after all this time, was able to get my own hologram ring. It's actually still in the plastic, so it's kind of hard to see the hologram effect. But it goes like a brick wall, and then it becomes the Shadows logo. So I'm so excited to finally have that. Actually, somebody offered it to me. Not that one, but another one that they had. They're like, hey, you like the Shadow? I'll sell you one. I'm like, dude, I got one, but if you make me a deal, who knows? And that's pretty much everything at this point. That's most of my collection